Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Seventh-day Church of Revelation.
Well, today's presentation is titled Final Movements Will Be Rapid Ones. We're going to look at what transpired during the pioneer times, historically, the prophecies that were happening in their time, and we're going to see if that is transpiring in our time and how rapid are they transpiring. And what are the indications of the prophecies that we'll see today that were transpiring back then? And what is it leading to? So to begin, we need to understand that God's people has the spirit of prophecy. And on Revelations chapter 19, verse 10, we read the following. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So we are not to refuse the testimony of Christ, because just like we do not refuse Jesus as being the Son of God, we cannot refuse anything that belongs to God and belongs to Jesus Christ. And in this instance, the spirit of prophecy belongs to Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy. Now, are we in danger if we refuse the spirit of Christ? Well, we read, quench not the spirits, despise not prophesying. So we can quench the spirit by refusing to listen to what the spirit of Christ or the testimony of Christ has to say to us. Now, today we're going to look at a little bit of a prophecy that is contained in the book of Daniel, chapter 11. Now, Daniel chapter 11 is a prophecy that the pioneers, the Seventh-day Adventist pioneers, were very familiar with and was transpiring in their time. For those who do not know, Mrs. White not only recommends the book Thoughts on Daniel Revelations, but she says that those who want to be students of prophecy need to read this book. And those who do read this book will not err. And she said that this book is to last till the close of probation, and it contains truth for this time. So, Daniel chapter 11, on the book Thoughts on Daniel's in Revelation, its title is A Literal Prophecy. All Daniel chapter 11 is a literal prophecy, which is illustrating what transpired with Greece, Alexander the Great, the four generals, the rise of Rome, the league made between the Jews and the Rome, the papal persecution, and what transpired towards the end. So in that light, in verse number 44, it's an important verse to know because we are in between verse 44 and verse 45. And we're going to see the implications that it has for our time and that the pioneers were also seeing in their time. It says, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. Now here speaking about the king of the north. The king of the north was going to be trouble, or out of the east and out of the north she shall be troubled. The king of the north was going to be troubled by these two countries. Well, if we look at our map, the king of the north, which also was embraced by the pioneers, was Turkey. Turkey, if we look at our map towards the north, what country do we find towards the north of Turkey? Or back then, during pioneer time, it was the Ottoman Empire. Does anybody know what country is that was towards the north of Turkey? Russia. And what was that country, or is that country towards the east? Back then was known as Persia. What is that country known as today? Iran, actually. Iran. So we see this conflict transpire between the country of the north, which is Russia, and the country of the east. There was something transpiring that was inflicting some fear or some tribulation with the king of the north, which is Turkey. This transpired actually in the year 1853, and it ended around 1856. You know what that name of this battle is known as between the conflict of Russia and Turkey? The Crimean War. That Crimean War transpired, and that was the tidings out of the east and out of the north that troubled Turkey. Now, what transpired is very important. That was very important for the pioneers and should be important for us today. Now, Russia had this great emperor, Peter the Great. Peter the Great, he left a testimony or a will for those who would succeed him or his successor. In it, it contained some valuable things for the country to reach its objective. And we're going to read a little bit about that. It says right here, before we get to that testament on the book on thoughts and Daniel and Revelation, it says Russia then saw that her opportunity had come. She accordingly started all the powers of Europe in the fall of the same memorable year, 1870, by stepping forth and deliberately announcing that she designed to regard no longer the stipulations of the Treaty of 1856. This treaty concluded at the termination of the Crimean War, restricted the warlike operations of Russia in the Black Sea. But Russia must have the privilege of using those waters for military purpose if she would carry out her designs against Turkey. Hence her determination to disregard that treaty just at the time when none of the powers were in a condition to enforce it. So at 1856, there's this treaty reached. In 1870, Russia says we're not going to regard it anymore. Makes this move where? Towards Crimea, towards the Black Sea. To what? To try to get something from Turkey. Now, let's see right here now. We see that it says in the Black Sea, there's something important that is for Russia to hold possession of this place. We read the following. Now, this is the testament. It says, this desire on the part of Russia has been cherished as a sacred legacy since the days of Peter the Great. That famous prince, becoming sole emperor of Russia in 1688. At the age of 16, enjoyed a prosperous reign of 37 years to 1725, and left to his successors a celebrated last will and testament, imparting certain important instructions for their constant observance. The ninth article of that will enjoined the following policy: to take every possible means of gaining Constantinople and the Indies, for he who rules there will be the true sovereign of the world. Excite war continually in Turkey and Persia, establish fortress in the Black Sea, get control of the sea by degrees, and also of the Baltic, which is a double point necessary to the realization of our project, accelerate as much as possible the decay of Persia, penetrate to the Persian Gulf, reestablish, if possible, by the way of Syria, the ancient commerce of the Levant, advance to the Indies, which are the great depths of the world. Once there, we can do without the gold of England. So, what is the objective? They know that gaining control of this area, they're going to be able to rule the world. That is their ambition. This is the ambition of Russia. Now, history repeats itself. what transpired, if I'm not mistaken, in the year 2014 that involves Russia? Well, you see here in this slide, Russia's 2014 invasion of Crimea, a short history. You read that scripture in the Bible that there's nothing new that has come or will be, because everything that has existed. We're going to see that this is very important, and the pioneers were very alert to this prophecy because it lets us know how soon is the end. So 2014, there's this invasion. They get control, or today partly control, Crimea, some say. Here's another thing that transpired: how Russia's grab of Crimea 10 years ago led to war with Ukraine and rising tensions with the West. All this is leading out to what the pioneers were seeing in their time. See, in 1856 to 1870, it transpired. You know, how many years is that? 1856 to 1870. About 1856 to 1870, about 14 years. 14 years, right? About 14 years. Okay. So we see this transpiring. And what else transpired from 1870, 18 years later in the Seventh-day Adventist? What transpired in 1888? God was wanting to prepare his people by most precious message given by whom? Wagner and Jones. This message was going to give power to God's people to give the loud cry. 1888. So you're seeing this conflict arise with Russia. You're seeing the plan God had with his people to waken them up, seeing these prophecies that they would embrace the 1888 message. And then in 1890, 1892, you have another prophecy being fulfilled, or not fulfilled, but being spoken of: the Blue Laws, or the National Sunday Law. All these were lined up together. Battle between Russia, Turkey, conflicts in the Middle East, Sunday law here in the United States, God wanting to wake up his people to be ready to give the loud cry. We see the interest of Russia wanting to gain control of the Baltic Sea, Crimea, and it is for a purpose. Look at this other article. Understanding Russia's war on Ukraine starts with understanding Russia's Black Sea politics. The same thing that was transpiring with the pioneers is transpiring before our eyes. And sadly, just like many of the SDA people have parted ways with the truth of the one true God, sadly today, many people of the SDA movement and even in the OTG movement have geared away from the prophecies that the pioneers had. And what did we read in Revelations 19:10 about the testimony of Jesus? It is the spirit of prophecy. And the spirit of prophecy, through Mrs. White, she said, read the book Thoughts on Daniel and Revelations, and it shall last till the close of probation, because in it there is truth. So let's move on. What transpired now within this month? Trump blames Biden, Harris for Iran's attack on Israel. Very close to global catastrophe. Now, how many years has transpired from 2014 down to 2024? 10 years. Is it not in a more speedy way, a more rapid way than what was transpiring with the pioneers? I believe it is. It's a lot quicker. With the equipment that they have today, they could do a lot more than what they were able to do back then. They got fighter jets at Mach speed. They got ships going fast, submarines. Everything could be accomplished in a faster way. So we're seeing these things transpire. The same prophecies that the pioneers were seeing in their day and that they were very alert of is transpiring for us today. And we're going to see the connection there is with this prophecy. So the news, how many have heard the news that Israel now started to attack Iran? Look at what this article says. Iran warns Biden over U.S. role in Israel's attack plan. So they knew beforehand, somebody, a whistleblower, gave some information. Israel's going to attack Iran. United States knows of it, and it was handed out. It was given out for the people to know. And before all this happened, there is a warning from Iran. Let's continue to read. The world is to be no criterion for us. Great changes are very soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. Agencies from beneath have been set in operation by the powers of darkness, and they are working in secrecy and have advanced faster than any of us have calculated. Satan, with his whole confederacy of evil, is stirring to intense fervor, and plans that have been made only wait a favorable moment for open development. All things are getting into a state of readiness. And while those who believe have been contending over little matters, drawing apart from each other, each seeking to have and vindicate, and vindicate his own way, the powers of evil have been strengthening for the last great crisis. So the people of God is arguing, right? Instead of listening to what the testimony of Christ says, they are arguing, saying, well, the pioneers did not have all the truth. But the Spirit of Christ says, read the writings of the pioneers. Read the writings of Uriah Smith through thoughts and Daniels and revelations. And today, even within the OTG movement says, they didn't have all the lights. Now look at what Sister White wrote in 1904. The judgments of God are in the land, the wars and rumors of wars, the destruction by fire and flood say clearly that the time of trouble, which is to increase until the end, is very near at hand. We have no time to lose. Now pay closer attention here. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecies of the 11th of Daniel have almost reached their final fulfillment. So there's a link between wars of nations and the fulfillment of the 11th chapter of Daniel. Look at this is from Stephen N. Haskell. We're going to see now the importance of Daniel chapter 11, what they saw and what is so important about this and understanding it. Stephen N. Haskell wrote the following. This treaty was signed and the ultimatum was officially put in the power of Muhammad Ali on August 11, 1840. This is the prophecy of the Ottoman Empire losing its power. Since that time, Turkey has been known everywhere as the sick man of the East. Daniel prophesied concerning him, saying, he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. This is from Daniel 11:45. At any moment, when the jealous powers of Europe can decide, either peaceably or in battle, which one of them shall occupy Constantinople, the sick man will speedily take his departure from Europe. That movement for which nations are now on the alert will be the sign of still more important changes in the heavenly courts. So this is a sign of what's going to happen in the heavenly courts. Okay? Constantinople today is Istanbul. Let's read on. The importance of the prophecy and the exactness which is was fulfilled to the very day should lead to a careful investigation of that divine history, which circles about the year 1840 to 1844. Its study will lead men to look for changes in the heavens as well as upon earth. For when the capital of Turkey is removed to Palestine, then Christ, finishing his work in the sanctuary, throws his censer on the earth as a sign for the final dissolution of all things. So when Turkey transfers its capital to Jerusalem, it is a sign that Michael will stand up, remove his clothes of priestly garments, and put on his kingly garments. And that means there's no more forgiveness of sin. There is no more intercessor for us to confess our sins and plead for forgiveness, because Christ will remove his priestly garments, and there is nobody more left in the most holy place to hear our prayers for forgiveness of sins. Continues. God's eye is upon his people, and he never leaves himself without a witness in the world. No man knows when Turkey will take its departure from Europe, but when that move is made, Earth's history will be short. Then it will be said, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. Today is the day of preparation. Now, this was transpiring with the pioneers, okay? Now let's see in our time. Let's see what we see. Let's see if God is still merciful with us, that he wants to see us. I'm about to come out of the most holy place. Pay attention to the signs of prophecies and get ready. Get ready. Let's see. Erdogan says Turkey might enter Israel to help Palestinians. Okay? So he's agitated. The sick man of the East is agitated. He's worried about Gaza. He's worried about Hamas. He's asking for the UN for help. Stop Israel from this massacre, he said. And now he's saying, we're probably going to have to do something. What does Israel says? Israel foreign minister urges NATO expel Turkey over the threat to enter Israel. What was transpiring with them in the pioneer time? They were worried they're going to kick them out of Europe. Who's going to take possession of this? Now, if he doesn't have support from the UN, he has no help. And that's what Daniel chapter 11, verse 45 says, none shall help him. What else does it say? Iran, Israel. Will Turkey get involved? You know, there's this article, the following actually. Turkey's Erdogan calls for Islamic alliance against Israel. Let's all unite. Gaza, let's unite. Hamas, let's unite. Iran, let's unite. You know, all these Muslim countries that don't like Israel, that want Israel, wants Jerusalem. Turkey is making the voice. The sick man of the East is urging, let's unite. Says right here, Israel's next target will be Turkey, Erdogan says. So he's worried because Israel's making its move and is now concerned, could they make a move against us now? We need to unite. Says here, in the last scenes of this earth's history, war will rage. There will be pestilence, plagues, and famine. The waters of the deep will overflow their boundaries. Property and life will be destroyed by fire and flood. This should show us that the souls for whom Christ has died should be fitting up for the mansions Christ has gone to prepare for them. So what should we be doing? It says the souls for whom Christ has died should be fitting up for the mansions Christ has gone to prepare for them. Matthew 24:37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. You know, we speak a lot about what's transpiring with the world, the immorality, the violence, the crimes escalating and everything. But we don't also look at what happened to those who also embraced the truth for a moment in the times of Noah and the pressure that they had. What happened in the time of Noah? It says, many at first appeared to receive the warning, yet they did not turn to God with true repentance. They were unwilling to renounce their sins. During the time that elapsed before that coming of the coming of the flood, their faith was tested, and they failed to endure the trial. Overcome by the prevailing unbelief, they finally joined their former associates in rejecting the solemn message. So many at first, they embraced it, they were helping out, but seeing the people and probably never seeing this flood ever come, they turned back. They turned back and joined the people who were calling against Noah, speaking against Noah. Today, we could probably be falling in that same error. There is a risk that we can also fall away from what the Spirit of Christ is saying to the churches. He's letting us see these signs and he wants us to wake up, but sadly, many in the OTG are refusing the testimony of Christ. They say, we don't need the spirit of prophecy, Bible alone. It is true. But because we refuse the truth, God in his mercy has given us the spirit of prophecy so that if we are probably walking in error, the testimonies can point to us, this is the truth. And today, many who listen or read the spirit of prophecy, the writings of Ellen White, even though it's showing them, they still or are hard-headed. We are hard-headed and refuse the testimony of Christ. Today, many, in fact, are even saying it's okay. You don't have to believe the spirit of prophecy. You don't have to believe the writings of Mrs. White. It's okay. You don't have to. But let us read what happened also in the pioneer time. This is from Brother Baker to James White. My heart is with those who are at the head of the work. I had a chance to see a report of the anti-organization conference of Marion. Oh, there were a lot of people saying, no organization. Why organization? It will be Babylon, authority, people being subject, oh, this and that. They didn't want organization. I have no fellowship for them. It is a drain open for those that oppose the straight testimony to go by themselves. 500 well united are better than 5,000 gift hating and idol loving people. Alas, how many will fall in the wilderness with unbelief when so much precious fruit has been brought back? Like so many clusters of grapes from the goodly land, it seems as though all might believe, but blind unbelief always has a handle. Satan does not like to have the gift brought back into the church. He knows that error and discord will cease when the gifts stand where they should stand in the church. God's people will come together, a perfect house, a habitation of God through the Spirit. Despise not prophesying, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 20 and 21. It seems as though some really despise prophesying because it does not come in their own way or just to suit them. I am glad a testimony is ripening in the church that will bring God's people into the unity of the faith. Paul says, fellow after charity and desire spiritual gifts. 1 Corinthians 14:1. It seems to be just as necessary to desire spiritual gifts as it is to desire charity. Both go together. You cannot separate. You cannot separate Revelations 12:17 that says that the dragon was wrath with his people, those who keep the commandments of Christ and have the testimony of Christ. You cannot separate that. They go together. The commandments and the testimony of Christ, the faith of Jesus, they're all together. To those who are indifferent at this time, Christ's warning is, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Revelation 3:16. The figure of spewing out of his mouth means that he cannot offer up your prayers or your expressions of love to God. He cannot endorse your teachings of his word or your spiritual work in any wise. He cannot present your religious exercise with the request that grace be given you. Could the curtain be rolled back? Could you discern the purpose of God and the judgments that are about to fall upon a doomed world? Could you see your own attitude? You would fear and tremble for your own souls and for the souls of your fellow men. Earnest prayers of heart, rending anguish, could go up to heaven. You would weep between the porch and the altar, confessing your spiritual blindness and backsliding. Warnings given to us. We have the testimony of Christ. Before Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 870 AD, there was this man running through all Jerusalem, giving a warning, It says right here, speaking about the need for unity, there are men of the world who have God-given powers of organization, which are needed in the carrying forward of the work for these last days. So is organization needed? The testimony of Jesus, which cannot be separated from the commandments of God, clearly says it is. Now, speaking about that man giving the warning to Jerusalem, for 7 years, a man continued to go up and down the streets of Jerusalem, declaring the woes that were to come upon the city. By day and by night, he chanted the wild dirge, a voice from the east, a voice from the west, a voice from the four winds, a voice against Jerusalem and against the temple, a voice against the bridegrooms and the brides, a voice against the whole people. This strange being was in prison and scourged, but no complaint escaped his lips. To insult and abuse, he answered only, woe, woe to Jerusalem! Woe, woe to the inhabitants thereof! His warning cry ceased not until he was slain in the siege he had foretold. Brothers and sisters, we are giving signs. God's people should be raising the alarm that the fulfillment of Daniel 11 is almost reached. And before it happens, we need to get ready. When it happens, it is too late. The church of God, who have had great life, are called upon to have works corresponding to their life, considering our superior advantages and knowing that we must be judged by the light and privileges bestowed. What can we offer as a justification of our conduct? Like Capernaum, we have been exalted to heaven in point of privilege. The precious light freely given to us of God was not given to Sodom or Gomorrah, or they might have remained unto this day. If the mighty works and knowledge and grace of God had been manifest to the nations who are in heathen darkness, we know not what they might have been. They might have been far in advance of what we are in Christian lands today. So how advanced are we today? We are no longer in a corporation for good reasons, because we choose to obey God rather than man. But how about this other question? Do you also choose to obey the testimony of Christ rather than men? Because many men, like I said, in this movement, steer away from what the pioneers held as truth. We need to stand firm in the truth. Not just one point, but Sister White said that they were living in the full blaze of truth, which is contrary to what many are saying. The pioneers did not have all the truth. The testimony of Christ says they did. The prophecy are transpiring, and therefore they're put in the scriptures because of mercy, so that we can know where we at in regards to prophecy and how long this earth is to last. We need to get ready. Christ is pleading with us. He's sending messengers after messengers so that we can awake, so that we can be united in the truth that the pioneers had, and to proclaim that truth in unity in an organized fashion manner. This is a call that I have. God telling me, are you willing to stand for the truth? The question is too, are you willing to stand for the truth?